Welcome to the Widowed Parent Podcast with your host, Jenny Lisk.
Hey everyone, it's Jenny Lisk, and this is episode 55 of the Widowed Parent Podcast. So I had such a great discussion with Laurie O'Neill and Marisa da Silva for this episode. So Laurie is a social worker, and she is Marisa's great aunt. And Marisa is just 10 years old. And her mom, Terri, died when Marisa was just 5. So now, together, Laurie and Marisa are the co-authors of the book Graceful Woman Warrior, which is based on the journal that Terri kept while she was undergoing treatment for breast cancer. It was really wonderful talking with both of them. I loved hearing their reflections and their journeys, and about how writing has been helpful to both of them in processing their grief. And it was especially nice to hear from Marisa. I have not talked to very many kids on the program. Really, before this, I talked to my own daughter, but I hadn't talked to any other kids. And I think it's really a special treat to be able to hear how it is for them to lose a parent and to hear it straight from their mouths. And I think it's really helpful to me as a widowed parent, and I hope it will be helpful and interesting to you as well. So I hope you enjoy my discussion with Laurie O'Neill and Marisa da Silva. My guests today are Laurie O'Neill and Marisa da Silva, who are joining us from Dartmouth, Massachusetts. Laurie and Marisa are co-authors of the book Graceful Woman Warrior, which Laurie published based on the journals of Marisa's late mom, Terri. Marisa and Laurie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.
We're very happy. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad to be talking with both of you today, and to hear about your journey and your story, and especially about the book that you guys have put together. But before we jump into that, let's just kind of sort out who's who here for listeners.
Okay.
So we got two guests today, which is fantastic. So Laurie, I believe that you, Marisa's grandma was your sister.
She was Jeannie, my sister Jeannie, and Marisa called her Nana Canada because they were from Canada. Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. And Marisa's mom, or her mamai, as you call her, Marisa's mamai, Terri, was your niece.
Yes, and she was also, her name was Terri Luana, and we like to include the middle name, and we'll tell you a little bit about that later, but that's an important part of the story, Luana.
Okay, very good.
She was yeah.
Okay, and so that makes Marisa your great niece, right?
Yes, Auntie Laurie,
Yep.
Great niece. Mm-hmm.
Super. Okay, and so Marisa, how old are you?
I'm 10.
10 years old. Fantastic. Okay. Well, let's just jump right into a little piece from the book here, if you don't mind. I'd like to ask you to start by reading, it's actually the last entry in the book, Graceful Woman Warrior, and I believe it's a letter that you wrote to your mamai when you were 8?
Yes. It was January 3rd, 2018.
Go ahead, sweet.
Dear Mamai, I miss you so much. I miss you every day, and I love you, and I want you back. You were everything to me. You were the one that made me. I wish you were here making new memories. The old memories are fine with me right now, but the most important thing is that I was with you.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us and with your readers in the book. That's lovely.
Thank you.
So let me ask, how old were you then when Mamai died?
5 years old.
5 years old. Okay, so it's been about 5 years then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And she died of cancer?
Mm-hmm. Breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Breast cancer. Okay. Was she sick for very long?
Kind of.
It's hard to remember, but you were 2 when I was diagnosed. We lived in Ohio at the time. And a year and a half before Terri was diagnosed, my sister Jeannie had passed from cancer. So Marisa was a baby. She was 1 year old, not even 1 year old, just about when Nana Canada died. And they actually moved to Canada from New York City. Terri, Luana, Marisa, and her daddy, Papai, they moved to Canada to help take care of my sister. They were living in New York at the time. And then after that, they moved a few places. Brazil, they stayed with me for a while while they were figuring out what they were doing, and they landed in Ohio. And they were only there about 4 or 5 months when Terri was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer at 37.
Okay, 37.
Yeah.
So somewhere in the middle of this cancer diagnosis and the cancer, all the activity, the treatments, the genesis of this book came about, I think. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Jenny, I could read the intro, which is really beautiful, that Terri wrote why she started this blog in the first place, if that's
Sure.
okay.
So the book then started from a blog.
A blog. The blog was called Graceful Woman Warrior, and Terri started the blog. So on December 27th, 2011, Terri wrote the following email to her closest family and friends, and she said, "Hi, y'all. So I finally got my blog set up and wrote my first entry based on the crazy news I received from my oncologist today. I've done this because it's all part of my master plan to use my diagnosis as a platform to further my social work training and help people in a more public way. The name is Graceful Woman Warrior in honor of my mom, and the name she gave me, Luana Mountain Born Robinson. Luana means Graceful Woman Warrior. And it just happens to apply so perfectly to my breast cancer battle. My goal is to share all the love I receive with the rest of the world through my actions and through my words. If my blog puts a smile on someone's face or gives somebody something new to think about, or offers a reminder about the lessons we all so easily forget in the daily madness, then I feel I'm working to my goal. Big hugs to everyone. Thanks for your continued support, and keep praying for me. I need all the positive healing energy I can get. Love, Terri Luana." So that's why she started her blog. And, writing for her, for me, and my whole life, and for Marisa, actually, is such a healing thing to do with the adversities and the struggles that we have in life. And for Terri, it was a complete game changer in her life. And, she's such a fabulous writer. The blog just blew up. She had thousands of followers. She really did,
Awesome.
Marisa, do you want to tell Jenny about Mamai, how she got the name Terri? Do you remember that story?
So Nana Canada and Grandpa and Mamai were all living in Canada.
Yeah.
And so Mamai, when they moved to
from Nova Scotia to Vancouver, yeah?
Yeah. When they moved to Vancouver, she said, "No one knows the name Luana."
I don't like that name, she said. I want to change it. And so what did she tell her mom and dad? I want to change it to
Terri.
And my sister said, "Okay, we're moving from coast to coast. It's the perfect time." She was 12, 13, your daughter's, right? But when Terri was diagnosed, she was very clear and vocal that she was re-embracing the name that her mother gave her because she was a graceful woman warrior. And my sister knew that from the get-go, and that's why she named her that. So I think that's a beautiful part of the story, actually.
Yeah, that is. That's terrific. I wonder what do you think the blog meant to her over time? She kept it going then for a couple years, it sounds like.
She kept it going through her whole journey, actually. And it changed her life. It transformed her life. It gave her a space to share her journey, to receive from so many people. I cannot tell you how many people reached out to her and became part of her journey. And that was the key that we all learned, that by sharing our stories, it helps to heal and to grow and to transform. Right, honey? And that's been true for Marisa and I. So Terri kept the blog going, and Jenny, it was in Chicago. We went to Chicago when Terri turned 40. What was the key Mamai taught us? To what? To
live life to the fullest.
Live life to the fullest, no matter what. No, they have cancer, I say, no matter if you're homeless, no matter if I say to the kids in school when we talk, getting divorced, there's a way that you can look at things and live your life in a way that's mindful and helps you to live fully in the face of adversity. And that's what she did. And towards the end, she was going to Chicago for her 40th birthday, even though she was very sick and, the chemo wasn't really working. We all flew to Chicago, but when she got there, she broke her hip. So we landed there for almost 6 weeks. And the last blog post that she did, I was literally in the room with her. And she used a voice recognition software at that point because her arm wasn't working anymore from lymphedema. And it took her 3 hours to do that blog post. And I offered numerous times to help her to write. And she said no, because writing, as we all know, is a very personal journey. And then the next phase was she said to me, I think I'm dying. I want you to tell people, Auntie.
Ah.
And so that's when I picked up the pen and started the pen, so to speak. I did a few blog posts from hospice with her. And then when she passed, right before she passed, actually, she asked me to publish her blog. She actually brought me and her husband and her best friend in the room, and she wrote out a letter giving me permission that she knew the power of story, and she knew that it helped so many people, and she knew it was going to help me. I think I knew Auntie needed that too, because I mean, to get through that grief that I was now experiencing again, it was pivotal to my healing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I wonder if she probably knew that someday Marisa would read it. I mean, I'm sure she didn't know Marisa would be involved in helping with it.
I think she did kind of know, because she knew me. Terri and I were both social workers, you know what I'm saying? And throughout when Mama was sick, Marisa, I don't know if you remember, but, you know, she asked to see Marisa in hospice. The room was great. We had so many people that just flowing in and out who loved Terri, and mostly Marisa. Her artwork was everywhere, but she, you know, it was getting towards the end, and she wanted to see Marisa. So I had Marisa read a story with me when somebody you love is dying. And at the last, there's a page where you draw a picture for your loved one who is sick. And Marisa drew the most beautiful picture. Do you remember that picture?
Yeah.
Tell them what it's a picture of.
So it's a picture of me and Mama holding hands, and she had a necklace that had the cross on it.
Yeah, and I said, what is that cross for? Hugs and kisses? And Marisa said, yes, and for God. So out of the mouths of babes, you know. So you know, we brought her there, and we just all together shared the journey in the end, you know. And I think she knew by how I was helping Marisa with her dying that she would also know that I would take her along to help her with her grief.
Yeah,
it's just natural. I mean, I think you were 6 the first time you wrote the first letter, because we were here. She was sleeping at Auntie's, and she was so missing Mama, and she was crying, and I just said, Marisa, how about, do you want to write a letter to Mommy? And she said, yes, Auntie. And so that's how it started.
It was at 6 years old.
He was 6 years old. And so, you know, it's such a healing tool as a social worker. I always do that with my clients and, you know, with the people that I love. And so it was just so natural to include her in the journey. And of course, then I said, do you want Auntie to put it in the blog? And she's like, yes. She knew the blog. She knew, I mean, you know how important that blog was, right, Marisa? She met so many people from the blog that knew her, you know, because of that. So she was all on board, you know.
Because of the famous part.
Oh, yes. That's absolutely, Jenny, that's a big thing.
Yes, of course. Well, okay, so let's talk then a little bit about the book itself, because I've heard bits and pieces of it here. So I think that the major portion of the book is actually Terri's.
Yes, the primary author is Terri da Silva, without a doubt. So what I had to do was take 3 years of blog posts, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of comments, and somehow put that into a manuscript. So 2 years to the day that Terri died, I went to Provincetown on the Cape, which is where my mom's from, and where we're all artists, and kind of, you know, that's where we always go for our inspiration. And I locked myself in a hotel room for 48 hours and just sat with the material. And Terri sent some messages. My sister sent some messages. Her best friend, Auntie Cole, who's in the book, and I were, you know, Skyping during the whole thing. And it just came to me to put it in the structure of the Serenity Prayer, because Terri and I were both, you know, followers of, you know, Al-Anon, and the Serenity Prayer was a big part of our lives, and it's all about mindfulness, and it just made perfect sense. Terri had to accept the thing she couldn't change, which was cancer, and then she had to have the courage to change the things she can, which is what the middle of the blog was all about. She was all about Eastern and Western medicine and combining the two and how to balance the two. And then finally, the wisdom to know the difference. She had to figure out when it was time to stop treatment. You know, all those decisions that we have to come through. So then I just honed in on the arc of her story and used the blog post that I felt, you know, brought it all together. And I wrote the intro, and then I finished it because I was writing the blog at the end for her. Then I invited Marisa. When I was putting the book together, it just made perfect sense, because Terri's end of life journey was very special. And she had a lot of visions, and she just, you know, the connections don't end. Okay, when people we love die, we're not saying goodbye. We have to find new and enduring ways to stay connected.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Marisa has done with her writing to her mom. And now with sharing the story with the world. Marisa has been, she's told the kids in her classroom. The Dream Book Tour, that was the other.
I want to get to the book tour in a second, but let me just ask Marisa about the book. So Marisa, so when Auntie Laurie asked if you wanted to participate in the book, what did you think?
I thought that I was really going to let my dreams go into my writing. And the letters that I sent to my mom, I feel like I was actually connecting with her in a way. Since she's not down here on earth, she's somewhere up there with the angels and God. Mm-hmm. I feel like she's still real, so she can still communicate with me by sending deer or playing her favorite song on the radio. And that's her way of speaking with me.
Mm-hmm. And then your way of communicating with her, it sounds like, has been your letters, which are then part of the book?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So I thought, wow, I'm really going to be that person that is inspiring other people to do whatever they can do in their dreams. Mm-hmm. And also being famous.
That's always fun, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, I guess speaking of fun, what has been the most fun part or maybe interesting part or rewarding part of this whole book writing and book publishing, book spreading journey here for both of you?
I think my favorite part is inspiring other people through my writing and just choosing to not just say, okay, and not even care, but to care about other people who are going to read this book and think, wow, she did that.
Yeah.
She went through a lot.
You did. You went through a lot. And by your sharing what you've gone through, you're helping so many people. It's amazing. It really, really is. Mm-hmm. For me too, I think one of the best things for me is, first and foremost, it keeps Terri so present in our lives.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, it helps so many people. And number three, it keeps Marisa so close to my life, which is such a gift from her mom.
Yeah.
And Marissa's, as you can hear, a very special little human being. And my sister called her a bodhisattva. My sister was a Buddhist monk, Nana Canada, and Terri was a practicing Buddhist as well. And a bodhisattva is an enlightened being that's here to spread their knowledge and their compassion and their love with the world. And that's exactly what she's doing. And we're doing it together, which is just such a beautiful thing. And I think for me, so my dad died when I was 8 and I was in 3rd grade. And I was shipped to an aunt's with my 2 younger siblings. The 2 older siblings, there were 5 girls, got to go to the funeral and say goodbye. But we were shipped away for 2 weeks. And my mom, I saw her once and she had a nervous breakdown. So it was really such a tragic time in our family, but I'll never forget going back to school. I was like a leper. The kids didn't want to talk to me. They didn't want to, they thought it was contagious. Nobody ever talked about it. So I was so desperately alone in my grief as a child that I was committed to that not happening. Hence I became a social worker specializing in grief and loss. But most importantly with Marisa, Terri, I knew that she would not be left behind in the story, and her dad took her to what was called the Good Grief Program, which was called, what was it called in Connecticut that you went to?
The Cove.
The Cove, yeah, because I had run a program here in Dartmouth called the Caring Tree. It's based on Maria Trotzi's Good Grief Program, and it's a family grief model. So you go to a support group and you go as a family, whatever caregiver is there. And so you have dinner together, and then the adults go to the adult support, the teens go to a group, and then the little ones go to a group. And I did the little ones, and we had activities, and they were thematically based on, helping you process your grief. And then you all come back together in the end and share what you did. So did that too, and I just think that this journey in this book has allowed us and allowed Marisa to carry her mom with her. So Marisa, tell her about this classroom. When she was in 4th grade was when we published this book, and her teacher showed them the book trailer that we made. I didn't even know this, and she came home from school. And what did you say when you came home? I'm famous. What are you talking about? She said, Mrs. McGreevy showed our book trailer to the class. I said,
nice.
Oh, and then what happened with all the kids?
Oh, they all surrounded me with like questions, and one of the boys named Jaden said that he was going to be my bodyguard.
So that's the famous part, right?
Yeah.
But even more importantly and more beautifully, her teacher invited us to come in and do a book talk about the book.
So was this your first then public talk about the book?
Yes. We had the book launch was the next day, and we had over 200 people coming, and we were both speaking, but we got to practice with her class. It was the most beautiful. I think that was like my favorite book talk. I feel like it was, Marisa. So we did more about publishing, genre, all those things, that aligned with the curriculum. Mm-hmm. But in the end, you have to talk about what the story's about, and it's about her mom dying,
Yeah. Well, how was that? I mean, how did the kids react to that?
How did the kids react, Marisa?
I think they reacted like, they all raised their hands.
Mm-hmm. She said the floodgates open. That's what she said.
Yeah.
Said,
so they weren't afraid to touch this topic or something.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is, Jenny, the adults are the ones that are afraid. Societies are the one that is afraid. And the problem is they're not afraid. They're waiting to be asked, to be included. And as soon as we opened up the door, they all raised their hand. They all wanted to share a story about someone they loved that had died. Mm. And that's what I found as a social worker in the school department. And that's why I really worked hard at that. Like if a parent or somebody special in the child's family died in the school, I would go into the classroom before they returned and read the story Lifetimes, which is just a beautiful story about the cycles of life. And I would say, so-and-so's grandmother passed away. They'll be coming back tomorrow. So I just want to ask you if you had any questions and talk a little bit about how you might be with them when they come back to school. What things that would be okay to say and things that might not be okay to say. And they would make cards. They just wanted to love and help their fellow, classmate on their journey. And I think with Marisa, that's what we've seen in school. I mean, in 3rd grade when they moved to Dartmouth and she went to her classroom, I had made her a book, Marisa and Mamai's Love Story, and it's their story in pictorial, it's a picture book, and she brought it to the class to share her story about her mom. Nice. And that's the key, is knowing the story is okay to share, and the adults making the environment safe to share.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking about if people are listening who are teachers, or even people maybe who are parents of, where their child has a friend who has lost somebody significant, like how they can support their own children. These are now the peers of that child who's had a loss. It sounds like, first of all, talking about it,
yes,
asking for them for their questions and answering the questions, and not being afraid to talk about it.
Not being afraid to talk about it and bring up the person that died. Marisa, how about your friends? How have your friends helped you in school? Even, in Connecticut, because she lived in Connecticut when Mamai died, and she had some amazing friends and teachers in Connecticut, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how did they help, do you think? What things were helpful to you?
I think my friends just really supported me, and they tried to, comfort me if I was crying and missing Mamai. Mm-hmm. And I think the teachers, we did a Connecticut book signing.
Yeah,
and they all came except for one. And she left me presents.
Yes, at the library. So kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade teacher.
Oh, how nice.
I mean, but teachers are so pivotal, Jenny. They spend more times with their teachers than they do with us as parents, if you think about it. Mm-hmm. So that bridging that gap, if there's one thing I can say to parents whose kids are grieving, I know that they're grieving as well. But if you can have the strength to either assign somebody like an auntie like me, or somebody to be that bridge with the school, it's paramount to their transition and their healing, to have somebody speak to the teacher, check in with the teacher, and not assume that when they go to the next grade, that teacher's going to know that kid's parent died. They don't always know, Jenny, because they don't really necessarily always go back to the transcript and read it. They might just miss it. So I always suggest that family members send a letter to the teacher every year. Like Marissa's going to middle school next year, so she's at the school that I used to work at, so everybody knows her, and everybody knew her mom too, but not so next year. So I will make sure that they will have a letter before school starts, just sharing our story, so that they will know. And that saves it for Marisa from having to, to be the one that walks into the classroom, and when somebody starts asking questions, they don't know yet,
Yeah, that can be awkward. I've heard that. And I guess I'm wondering, well, maybe you've come up with some ways to deal with this or have some ideas, but from being a social worker, but if you're encountering new kids and new families, like let's say you're going to middle school and, someone says to the child, oh, what do your parents do?
Mm-hmm.
Or something, just a chit chat kind of question. They're not expecting. And then maybe the kid freezes. Like, what do I say? Well, my mom works at a bank and my dad's dead. I mean, right? That's a real conversation stopper. And then it gets awkward. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that kind of, around that piece?
I think every situation's different and every child is different. And I think, Marisa, if kids asked you, what do you say? Do you say anything to them if somebody that you don't know asks you what your parents do? That's an interesting question.
What I usually say is, my mom's not here with me right now.
Mm-hmm.
She's somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that kind of, you can test the ground that way. Really, because you're not really saying that she died, but you're saying she's not here right now, and it gives you that space to either exit the conversation, or if the person actually checks in with you and is empathic and compassionate and might say, gee, I'm sorry, do you want to talk about it? Maybe you might respond, but if they, just kind of went in a different direction, it gives her the out that she needs.
Yeah.
To not necessarily talk about it with somebody she doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great strategy, Marisa.
Mm. I can see how it can get awkward too if it doesn't. I've heard kids say that if something comes up and they don't take an opportunity to say something, then down the road, it's then they're like, oh, now I can't say it because I didn't tell them 3 months ago. You know what I mean? It becomes more and more awkward over time sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And I think, again, my goal with Marisa and with all, people with sharing this story is to open up these conversations as often as possible. Mm-hmm. Teachers have such power to do that. They can just introduce an activity in the beginning of the school year. Many of us have lost people that we love. We're going to take 5 minutes to do a quick write about somebody we love that has died. And whoever would like to share can share. There's just an opening in the beginning of the school year to give Marisa permission to say something out loud if she felt safe enough to do that.
Sure.
Or not. And then later, 3 months down the road, if it came up again, you could say, well, I did write about it, but I wasn't ready to share at that time. You know? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
It's delicate. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A few minutes ago, you mentioned a program at a grief center, which reminded me, I think there's another program, Marisa, that you've been involved in. I think it's called EmpowerHER. Can you tell us about that?
So, EmpowerHER is about a group of girls that lost their moms. And we do a lot of fun activities with each other. Go to different places. It's normally somewhere in Boston or maybe even Cape Cod, somewhere in the area. And we do certain things like a beach bash, an acting workshop, which I actually have a journal with some prompts in it. And we also do Mother's Day retreat, which is where it all started.
Mm-hmm. So Cara Belvin is the woman that started it, and her mom died when she was 9 of breast cancer. And like me, nobody talked about it. She said, she had a lot of love and support with her family, but nobody talked about her mom. And it's just so impacted her whole being for all of her life until, as a young adult and a young mother, she was, I think, a school psychologist at the time, and actually she was also working nonprofit after that for breast cancer research. There were several girls in her community that she found out that had lost their moms. So this inaugural thing was a Mother's Day retreat. I think it might have been at her house even. And that was the genesis of this program that now, Jenny, we went to the last Mother's Day retreat in Boston. How many people were there, Marisa?
About 100.
120 girls. I mean, and she's now going national. So they're trying to start a chapter in Los Angeles, New York. There is an active chapter in Connecticut now. And it's a support-based program that is event-based. So it's not therapeutic necessarily, but you find your tribe, which is so pivotal to find the tribe that you belong to when you feel so alone, when you're a grief-struck child. You really do. Marisa, she has the prompts that she did, they're beautiful, Jenny. I'd love her to read them.
Oh,
so
yes,
they
please.
5 prompts at this acting workshop. So I'm her mentor. All the girls are also matched, Jenny, if they want to be, with an adult woman to mentor them. Most of the women that sign up have lost their moms as well. Okay. So that they get to be with this, and they spend up to no less than 6 hours per month taking them shopping or doing activities, things that moms would do,
Yeah, that's terrific.
It is wonderful. So
and
go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to ask, what age of girls can participate?
So I would say, they say like 4 to 5 is the youngest, and it went up through high school, but then they realized it doesn't end at high school. So then they have a bridge program for girls in college, and they send them gifts. You get the gift packages from your mom in college. EmpowerHER now. Marisa gets an EmpowerHER gift every Christmas. It comes in the mail. She gets the most beautiful letters from them. It is just one of the most pivotally life-changing programs, I think, that Marisa has experienced and that I've experienced as a mentor and as a social worker, just looking in at the power of story and the power of sharing your story together. So they had 5 prompts at this acting workshop, and then they had to give their book back, which the front of the book says choose happy, and then other kids read their prompts. But as soon as I heard it, I knew it was her, because, why don't you read it, honey?
I have a secret. I am a real author. The book I wrote is called Graceful Woman Warrior. It is about my mom and how my family went through this breast cancer journey. I am grateful for EmpowerHER. I first realized it when Auntie Laurie told me she put my blogs in the book. I'm proud of myself. Something I learned was that I can inspire others through my writing. It makes me feel open to heaven and the earth. And now that I've said that, I feel that I've inspired more people and chose to be happy.
Wonderful.
I mean, I'm sitting there like bawling, of course, that day.
Yeah.
She says, oh, Auntie, you're so emotional. I'm like, yes, crying is good. Auntie likes to cry. Not that I want to, but, it feels better. And it was tears of joy that this beautiful girl has been able to channel her grief into something so healthy.
Yeah. Well, so Marisa, I wonder, do you have any thoughts of doing more writing more books sometime?
Yeah, actually, I'm about to write my own book. It's basically a Graceful Woman Warrior for kids. So the kids can understand what it feels like and what to do in certain situations like that.
So is it going to be for kids in your position who have lost a parent, or is it going to be for kids in general, or kids who are friends of people who lost a parent?
Just kids in general.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, now, do you have a date when I can look for this? Do you have a target?
Oh boy, what do we have to do, Marisa? What did Auntie say?
I have to go somewhere that I feel the most
inspired. We have to carve out time, because I explained to her, in order to write a book, you need to really give yourself that sacred space and really immerse yourself in your story and all other stories that were written by kids as well, right, Jenny? You're writing a book. You have to do all the research.
Yeah.
So I hope to be able to carve that time out with her, and we would do it together. And I would have probably a forward, for parents, whatever caregivers. So it's on our next adventure, right, Marisa?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of our next adventures. Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. And now you guys know all about writing a book, publishing a book, doing a book tour, getting the word out, selling books. You guys are pros now.
We're getting there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. Good. Well, I will stay on Laurie, I'm following you on social media, so I'm sure I will see when you have any news about the book.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah,
I will
that's awesome.
post it. Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what haven't we covered here? I think we've jumped around and covered most of the things that I was thinking of asking you about. I guess, Laurie, I was just wondering, I've heard you say that writing this book has been transformative for you. I was just wondering if you could talk about that a little bit.
Well, I can't believe where I am right now, quite frankly. And I had a career as a social worker in the school department for 23 years. And 2 years after Terri passed, I just realized that things were getting a bit crazy because I was traveling to Connecticut back and forth. That's where they were living at the time. I also had a private practice that I was doing, and I also have a 92-year-old mom that I, spend a lot of time with. So my husband and I decided it was time for me to retire from my school social work job. And then I started the book. And then when I launched the book last year, I decided to close my private practice because it just happened. The universe, all of my clients, it was very small. They were going to college. It just was the perfect time. They were ready to be launched. So I've got a new career at 62, which is crazy to me, Jenny. Really crazy, So that's transformative. Most importantly, it's transformed my grief into something that is like alive and well and, helping others. And, it's spreading so much compassionate and helpful direction to people, kids as well as adults. It's just transformative. So my sister Dory wrote a song when Terri passed called Terri's Hymn. And she performed it with my daughter, who's a singer, and my niece, Tanya, who's a singer. It's actually, people can find it at Dory Rubico on her website. It's a beautiful song. And the refrain is, we have to find our way without you. And this is how I found my way without Terri. And it's how I've managed finding my way, and I'll cry now, without my sister, because they're with me. And I've kept them with me through this journey. And that's how it's transformed me and allowed me to live fully and joyfully amidst the darkness that is grief. Because let's face it, Jenny, there are a lot of dark times, when you lose somebody you love, right, Marisa? And this has just, as Terri did, she did so well, Mommy, just so well. She was the brightest light, right, Mommy? I mean, she would be, she couldn't even use her arm, right? But she would find a way to cut those vegetables. She'd have you next to her, helping her. I mean, she just embraced life every single second that she could. And that's what we're just trying to live, Marisa, you and I. And I think we're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, listeners can't see you guys, but I can see you. And I think you're both bright lights. And Marisa, I think it's so wonderful that you're doing this. And you're lighting up when you're talking. So it's so great to see.
Yeah. One other thing that it's helped me too is I decided to start a workshop. And it's called Grace Lessons, a bold blueprint for mindfully navigating the sacred cycles of life, loss, and living beyond. And it's based on Terri's transformational teachings. So the book, as I said, was structured around the Serenity Prayer. So I structured the workshop the same way. So the first part is acceptance. We have to accept that the person that we loved has died. And the next part is activation. Okay, so here's my new normal. Who am I in this new normal without this person, right? And then the third part is called awakening, because that's when we have to figure out the wisdom from the shared loss stories and what everybody else has been through, and how we're going to take the wisdom of what we learned to live our lives fully in the face of loss. And they're fluid steps where you accept it and then you move on, and then you come back and it slams you in the face again, that you're just like, I can't believe they're gone, So it's not like they happen sequentially, but and within each section I have a lot of experiential activities that we do. A life imprint is you really take a close look at that person you loved and how their imprint is left on their lives. A loss timeline, because loss are cumulative. I mean, my dad died when I was 8, and I've had so many more losses in between, but each one informs the next, and how I did or did not get through and process that loss. Like, I was stuck with my dad for many, many, many years. I didn't process it because it really wasn't invited to do so. So I just love having people show up and be able to look at their losses in a compassionate and loving space. Yeah. So that's what I'm doing next. That's my next big thing. Right.
Terrific.
Now. Yeah.
And Marisa, what's next for you? Are you in 5th grade now? What grade are you in?
5th.
Yeah.
5th grade. So you're probably headed into spring term here and looking forward. Do you have any big plans for the summer?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll be talking about camp soon. So tell her what your favorite thing to do right now is still, that you went to camp last year.
Horseback riding.
Horseback riding, that's a big thing.
How fun.
Mm-hmm. So she did pony camp last year. We're actually, so in the book, another pivotal character in this book is Auntie Cole. And who's Auntie Cole, Marisa?
Auntie Nicole is my godmother.
Mamai's best friend.
And God calls her my earth mother.
Yes, Marissa's Earth Mother. And Auntie Nicole had twins recently. They're going to be here. So we're going to visit the twins on February vacation. And Auntie Nicole is convinced, because she had a really hard time getting pregnant, that the only reason she got pregnant was because she called on Mamai to help her. And she's convinced that that's why she got those beautiful babies. And Marissa's there actually junior godmother to both of them.
And these are brand new babies, just
born? They'll be a year in March, right, Marissa? Yeah. So those, and again, it's all connected to Terri, and that's the beauty, is that she just continues to weave those threads of connection.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think we could keep talking about this for a long time, especially about the publishing and writing of the books. I'd love to talk to you more about that sometime. But I think we do need to wrap up with just one more question for each of you here today. So, Marisa, I'll ask you first. If you could say one thing to kids whose parent died, what would you say to them?
I would say I know how it feels. I've gone through the same thing, and you're not alone. I once grieved too, and I still am sometimes. So I know how it feels. And
Thank you. And Laurie, if you could say one thing to adults, maybe extended family members, or as adults who have a grieving child in their life, what would you say to them?
Kids don't grieve the same as we do, but they do grieve. So please acknowledge and remember that, and to pay attention to the cycles that you'll see them experience. They may not cry like we do, but they'll show you in some way, whether behaviorally, or they might start wetting the bed, or, all those things that show up that indicate that they need some help around the loss. Tap into resources. There are so many resources today. My God, these podcasts, Jenny, I love your podcast. It's such a valuable tool that would never existed, So
thank you.
Listen to those, tap into those, reach out, find support groups. I can't speak enough about the power of bearing witness and holding each other through your grief stories. It just transforms and moves the healing along a bit faster than when you stay encased in your own family and kind of don't reach out and get support. So get support. Ask people, there's lots of love and help out there. You're not alone. That's what Marisa said. You're not alone. Definitely. That's the answer. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thank you. I think that's a great place to end. So my guests today are Laurie O'Neill and Marisa da Silva, who are co-authors of the book Graceful Woman Warrior, which is based on the journal of Marissa's Mamai, Terri, who died when Marisa was just 5 years old. So Laurie, where can listeners find you and find the book if they'd like to learn more about your work?
Please, I would love you to connect with us on social media. I'm actually Laurie O'Neill, MSW, on Instagram. Graceful Woman Warrior on Facebook. And please come to my website, our website, gracefulwomanwarrior.com. It's a beautiful website. Actually, my husband's website designer helped me for free. He was so invested in our journey and what we were doing for people that he helped me build it for free. And it's beautiful. And all our reels are there. There's a beautiful reel, actually. Kind of our newest book trailer that we made in New York. We had our New York City book signing, which was so exciting.
Oh, how fun.
That was kind of the piece de resistance of the book dream book tour. Marisa really wanted to go to New York. So anyways, go there, check us out. I still blog, sign up, and you'll get all the new and exciting news from Graceful Woman Warrior and what we're doing next.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic. Well, Marisa and Laurie, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you, Jenny, so much. We really appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Laurie O'Neill and Marisa da Silva as much as I did. You can find show notes and all the links at widowedparentpodcast.com. Look for episode 55. And I wanted to say a quick shout out and thank you to Ballpark Girl and Winter for All, two people who left reviews in Apple Podcasts recently. One says, great support for widowed parents. The other says, such a helpful, accessible resource. And they both make a lot of really nice comments about how helpful it's been to them. So thank you both for that. It means a lot to me to hear that the podcast is helping other widowed parents like myself. And also, it is really helpful to make the podcast stand out more to other people when they come into iTunes or Apple Podcasts looking for resources. So thank you both for your support and your kind comments. And I want to make sure that everybody knows how to make sure that you are getting the episodes each week. So the very best thing you can do is make sure you're on my email list. Each week I send out a link to the new episode and some comments about it. Usually include some other resources, maybe some articles that I've found, or maybe some that I've written I think will be of interest to widowed parents. So you can get on my email list at jennylisk.com. And if you go to jennylisk.com/top 10, you can download a free guide that I put together with some reflections on some of the things that I've learned from my guests on the podcast. But in any case, if you make sure you're on the list, then you won't miss an episode. And the other really helpful step is to go into your favorite podcast app. So if you have an iPhone, it might be Apple Podcasts. If you have an Android, maybe Google Podcasts. For either one, you could use Spotify or any of your favorite podcast app. Go in and either search my name or search Widowed Parent Podcast. You should find it, and click the button. It'll probably say subscribe. It might say follow, something like that. It's free. There's no charge to do that. But what it does is it makes sure that each time there's a new episode available that you'll get a little notice on your phone. And it'll show up in the podcast app, and it'll be really easy to find. So, everybody, thank you for listening, and until next week, keep smiling.
Thank you for listening to the Widowed Parent Podcast with your host, Jenny Lisk. Connect with us on social media and at widowedparentpodcast.com.